you buy that shirt, Caleb? Or you had it?
No, it's the shirt they got me.
I can't
I
really
like
hear
it.
me in my.
Who got you it? We're rolling already?
I watched that with Adam for the first time in my life.
It's just disrespectful but I haven't seen the part 2 of the Christmas
Neither
story.
Neither have I.
I heard it's pretty depressing.
Is
it really, like how the first one of Christmas Story is about a boy's wonder of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
The part 2, the one that just came out this year, is like how depressive it is to be an adult at Christmas.
Oh,
That'll ruin everything.
you really empathize with how his dad felt.
Dad.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, now I understand what my dad. Hey, Phil, you over there? I do got some special things today because it's Christmas episode. It's Christmas Day episode. We got some gingerbread cookies.
Yes. Oh
Hey.
gosh.
All of a sudden, we're gonna hear everybody.
And I didn't
chewing
forget
and
about.
chomping.
Is there more over there? No. Okay. And I got you guys some Christmas presents because it's a Christmas Day episode.
Oh, how sweet.
Okay.
Who's who? Phil. Yeah. See,
So
Caleb,
you
I
did
didn't
bring the
forget.
heat. All right.
Who's this?
All right. You didn't leave me hanging.
This is Sanaz.
Oh, I can't wait.
Okay. It's just some light. It's just some light. Who's this?
Is it a
Ashley?
membership to the AARP?
Yeah, almost. I should've done that. And then this is so one at a time.
I
It's
hope
just
it's
some
not-
real light. It's just some real light.
Better not be a hot cone.
Hey, I didn't forget about you guys.
Let's reveal.
Phil, could you give them some of these? I didn't forget about Chelsea and Nancy.
Fuzzy
thank
slipper.
you so much. I was
love
about to
it.
say, hand them
Merry
cookies
love
along.
it. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Hey, I got gingerbread
Phil.
over
Oh,
here
these
too.
are
So
Phil.
yeah,
You got
guys
any
want
water,
that?
Phil? These are
Gumdrop buttons.
bomb. Phil, you got any water?
Oh, thank you.
No.
Pink is my favorite color.
See,
These are so
you got to, but you
good.
got to put them on right now.
Thank
That's the
you.
point.
Happily.
You guys got
I'm
Christmas
Oh,
slippers.
plates.
Oh my
Here.
gosh, look at that. That one's
And then
mine.
Caleb.
Don't touch it.
It's for you.
All right.
Okay, because I know how much specific holidays mean to you.
Oh God, the thing.
It's a little something for you.
times.
Some a little light.
Okay. Slippers.
Got some slippies. Okay, wait for the next thing.
Oh, did he drop it?
The professional puppeteer. Since I know how much you love
Nice.
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah pants.
Hanukkah pants.
Gingerbread. Okay.
I love it. Thank
for my
you.
fuzzy
Thank you.
slippers.
I love it.
They're on now.
That's not a soft
And then-
cookie. Can I have a plate?
Because for all of those that are listening, you know I'm the people's padre, so I got some slippers today. Papa
Oh,
Oso,
nice.
Papa Bear slippers.
Oh,
Because I'm the people's padre. So here we go.
Can I have a plate?
They're going on. Yeah, I got little plates right here
Thanks.
too. We thought of it all. Me and Phil
Those
went on
are pretty
a.
hard, so watch your teeth. You may crack one.
Oh,
He could have at least
I won't
warmed
say
them
where we
up.
got them from then. Okay.
Okay, so
People's Padre.
while we're all comfortable,
There we go.
This is Steven, by the way. This
Hi,
is Steven.
Steven.
Hey, Esteban.
And he watched our last podcast with you guys, and he thought you were kind of disrespectful towards men. So he had me write a statement. And he doesn't speak English, so
Would you drop? Hey, could you do
I'm
me a
gonna-
favor?
What's up?
Can you go under the table so I really feel it? Like
You
I
want
want
me
to
to
talk
go
to
under-
Steven.
Well, he doesn't
We'll bring
speak
the mic
English.
down.
For those
So
of you
I have
listening,
to
hold on. For
interpret
those
for
of you
him.
guys listening, he has a puppet, a gremlin puppet in a Santa outfit.
Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, he's got a Santa Claus gremlin from the 1993 gremlin. so he's about to have the gremlin release a press
Yes.
release on
So-
behalf of men.
Now, I'm going to interpret this from his language. He doesn't speak English, but I just want to, right off the bat, I don't take sides. I disavow anything that he says right now.
Let's hear it, Steven.
Okay, so first thing he wants to say is, a woman asked, grown men, why are you still playing video games? And the man replies, or Steven replies, same reason you wear makeup. Nice little escape from reality. That's cold, bro. So the next thing he says, why do husbands usually die before their wives? Because they want to. This guy. All right. Top 7 things men do to upset women. Lie, be honest, not talk too much, not show emotions, be too emotional,
Right.
And finally, breathe.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, makes sense to me.
Yeah, Steven.
Dang.
Sounds
He's
about right.
crazy, boy.
He's right.
He
All right.
crazy, boy.
If women ruled the world, there would be no wars. Just a bunch of countries not talking to each other. Dang, bro. When can women make you a millionaire? When you're a billionaire. Right. That was a good one. They like that one.
Good job, Steven.
I don't know. All right. He goes, happy. He loves our.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I got you.
This is the most preparation you've ever done for a podcast.
He loves International Women's Day. It's one of his favorite days of celebration. And the reason being is because it reminds him that every other day is Men's International
Yeah.
Appreciation
Yeah.
Day. And then this is the final one. Okay. So he says, did you know there are no women in heaven? Did
Why?
You guys
No,
know
I didn't know that. No.
There are
No,
no,
didn't
that's
know.
biblical. There's
Wow.
no women in heaven.
Or men, right?
Because Revelation 8:1 says, when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half hour.
Not when I get there, baby.
That was good
Steven, thank
Good
you.
job.
Steven,
Good job,
thanks,
Steven.
bro.
You,
Appreciate it. That was
you
great.
can go now.
Yeah, bye, Steven.
Bravo, Steven.
All right.
Yeah, let Steven rest a little bit
Bye,
for
Steven.
the
You
future
worked so hard.
for the future
right.
podcast clips.
Steven is single
there we
for
go.
sure.
For sure, definitely.
For sure single.
All right.
That was a
you,
good.
Steven.
That was
Yeah.
a great introduction,
That
Steven.
was.
You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Steven.
Preferably when we're not here.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay, so like Caleb said, it's me, Adam, and we got Caleb here, the People's Padre, and we brought back my wife Ashlee.
Hi.
We brought back me and Caleb's sister-in-law Sanaz,
Hola.
who's here.
Hi.
It was by far our favorite episode. Not our favorite. I got other favorites, but
Clearly
no,
not Steven.
Not him. Not
Steven's.
Steven's favorite.
but it was people's favorites, right? We've had over 250,000 downloads on this podcast with you guys.
That's awesome.
So, you got people talking, you got people engaging. So we thought, run it back, part 2 for the last podcast of the year. This is airing on December 25th. So
Merry
this is
Christmas.
the last one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Our next one that will air will be on January 1st. It'll be a new year, new
that's
time.
awesome.
So we are back to talk about all things men, women, children, whatever it may be, relationships. We're running it back. Little part 2 on this joint.
Yep.
So we're excited to hash it out. We had the little first time jitters with all you guys. I think I'm prepared this time.
You had the jitters.
You had the jitters.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't,
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever had jitters.
I did. I definitely did. I would say Ashlee did.
Ashley did, but now she's ready to go. Okay, so we got the whole team in the room. We got Nancy, Chelsie,
What's poppin'?
Corey, we got Gabe, we got Alizé, we got Jermaine. Hey man, I just want to let you guys know that Gen Z
That was
episode
so
was
good.
amazing. Alizé in the room,
Yes.
Jen, we got
Great
Phil in the
job.
room.
Great job.
I've been seeing the comments. I've been seeing the
Yeah.
engagement. People love that one. So when I watched it, I was like, I got lots of questions. So we're going to have to run that back one of these days because
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little bit more of a troll on that one. So I thought it was awesome, though. I thought your guys' I thought the Gen Z perspectives were incredibly brilliant.
They were.
Incredibly great perspective of a generation that I'm even still trying to understand. So loved it. We're going to have to run it back. But Gabe, why don't you take us into the first conversation piece of today?
The first one is going to be about the general idea of women having to compete with men in like business or just in life in general for rights or money or whatever it is, stuff like that.
Okay.
She gets up and she says, Patrick, I have to tell you my breakthrough last night. I said, what is it? She said, for the last 20 years, all I've been trying to do is compete against men to prove that I can make as much money as they make. I'm strong. I don't need them. I'm independent. I run a very successful salon. I do very well for myself. Everybody that works with me makes great money. I'm very, very, successful right now to my friends, to my peers. I said, okay, and where are you going with this? What's wrong with that? She said, the breakthrough I have yesterday is men are not the enemy. I want a husband. I want to get married. I want to have a family. How interesting is that, right? The person she wanted to beat the entire time, now she wants to marry. How many endless videos can we see with women in their 60s who bought into the feminist movement to make men and women equal are sitting there saying, I regret making that decision because I'm single, never been married, don't have any kids, and I'm alone. And I wish I would have married, man. I wish I would have had kids because I wouldn't have been alone today.
I'm interested in your guys' perspective on that, or any of the women in the room perspective on that. Like, what do you guys think? I mean, I know right off the bat, you guys are more non-modern feminism.
Right.
You guys are more traditional women in that sense. But in perspective of maybe even people you know or the culture or whatever it may be, like, what do you guys think about his statement to the conversation to the woman he had?
I think it's hard to see or say even on that, just because what was her mindset and upbringing, I think, has to do with a lot of why she felt the need to be better than a man, depending on how her home life was, depending on how she was raised. Because like you said, I was raised with a mother and a father, and I was raised that the wife was to be submissive to the husband. But they were still on equal playing fields, like we talked last time on the podcast, how I still held value when it came to the family life, and you held value to the work life, to where they equal themselves out. But now, as seeing this woman who has now felt that she needs to compete with men, that is such a societal thing, where this feminist is on a rise, where women need to do all these things, but they find themselves lonely. They find themselves still needing a man, and to where she could have done this and probably done it even better if she would have had that spouse and they could have taken it on. So I think it's hard to say, for women that are going through this, it's, I think, taking a time to reflect and not listen and be so consumed with social media, consumed with what your next peer is saying to you, and actually really look and genuinely look inside yourself to see your emotions, see your feelings, see what you really want, instead of looking at this competition. Because I'm a competitive person, you know that. But there's never a time where I've looked at Adam and said, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to be better than him. Absolutely not. There's still a level of humility that I have, and a desire in a woman's heart, which I feel like God has instilled in us as women, to find a spouse, to be with someone, why he created Adam and Eve, to be in union with someone. So I think that there's that stigma where we have to realize that they have to take a reflection. A lot of women need to take a step back and maybe reevaluate their life and say, where do I need to take back? Where do I maybe need to lower my standard? Not lower my standards. Chelsie and I were talking about this. It was change my standards into where you may
not
think
lower.
not lower, but change your standards to say, like, maybe it's not a physical attraction, but maybe it's more such an intimate attraction or a genius attraction. Like, that's why I fell in love with Adam. I think he's handsome. I think he's fine. But I think he's, when I met him, he's so smart. And I tell you guys all that. The Mesa men are very smart.
Very smart.
And they do their diligence. But that's something that I didn't know I was attracted to.
Sure.
You a smart boy.
I'm done.
Listen, I consider myself...
Intellect, it can be attractive.
Sure.
You know? Yeah.
I consider myself a feminist. And by that, I mean, wait, let me explain. Wait.
He just scooted his chair over.
Steven.
I consider
Bring
myself
Steven back.
a feminist because I believe in the power of a woman. And I believe that
True
women...
feminism.
Correct.
I know where you're going.
I believe that women can do things that men cannot do. But in order for me to believe that, I have to believe that men were created to do things that women can't do.
That's good.
And just like how Ashlee said, I don't feel a competitiveness with Adam because you guys are on the same team.
Yeah.
And when we look at that video and where he talks about, you know, I have been competitive with men my whole life until I realized that men were not the enemy. Because God does not make mistakes when he talked about the fact that a woman came from a man, that when we get married, we become one flesh. That is to represent the fact that we are to be moving forward together. I am going to do what God has created me to do. My husband is going to do what God has created him to do. And we work cohesively as a unit to move forward. So when I look at this video and I know that people are going to sit there and say, well, I don't know, why can't this woman say that she can have it all? She can have the career, she can have the family, why, if her wanting to be so successful financially, business, whatever, does that mean that she doesn't get the other things too? But what her mindset was that she felt like she had to be better than a man, whereas she said, I can do fine as a woman, being a woman and doing what God has called women to do. And that looks different for everybody. But that's why I consider myself a feminist, because I do believe that women can do a whole lot of things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are meant to do all of those things. I know
in the context of singleness, though, like we see when people are getting married later in life than they were 20 years ago. So before you even enter the marriage where you do have to evaluate your roles, there's that single period. During that time, as people are waiting for their person to come, you're working. So as you're working, that's where the perspective came in. Like in the workplace, I'm fighting to have equality with men. That then mentality does trickle into marriage, because in the meantime, you are working. So that's how I view the context of the video. Like,
well, you're right. That's a great perspective. And I think what I thought about was there is a lot of regret with millennials, Gen X mainly. Boomers are kind of, retiring now and everything. But Gen X and millennials and Gen X who really took the most advantage of the sexual revolution with the invention of birth control and making sex more without consequences. And so you have a lot of millennial women, a lot of Gen X women who have
It's the Sex in the City culture.
Yeah,
right?
slept with a number of men, have a huge body count, as they would say.
Yeah.
And they're looking back on, and they're saying, I was sold a bill of goods. Happiness is not me having this totally free spirit without any sort of consequences, just being able to sleep with whoever I can sleep with. And, and there is and just resentment. There's a resentment towards men when you get really ingrained in a sort of extremist feminist mindset. There's this resentment of men and a lack of appreciation for the unique role and value that men bring, because you have the feminist culture that's trying to tear down any semblance of patriarchy and semblance of male leadership and headship, which I think is natural law, and I think it's biblical that men are the heads of the home, that they are they should be the leaders of society, and insofar as they aren't the leaders, it shows a weakness in society. And that's not to say that women can't fill that role, because women are very adaptable and they have a lot of strength, and God has gifted women to have a survivability aspect, to survive any sort of cultural rifts that happen. So there is a strength that women have by nature, but the natural design is that there are these unique roles, so I just think that that's where
the context of marriage, though. So that's where I get confused in the workplace as a single person. How are you evaluating?
You're missing the context of what he's saying, because he's talking about massive success. He's not talking about a job.
Got it.
He's talking about a woman who had massive success at the threshold. And if you speak to women who are pursuing massive success, you're talking about they want to run companies. They want to. You will hear them say, because I've met women like this, I would love to find a man, but every man I go on a date with, he wants a family. I don't want to give him a family because I have to take months off to bear a child. I have to do X, Y, and Z. So therefore, every man that I meet, I've not met a man who doesn't want kids. It's like, so they say, so then I don't go on a second date with that man. And then I'll go with a man and he'll say he'll be striving for success. And he'll say, well, if we do start a family, one of us has to take the back seat, and that woman
if the
who's coming
woman's
for
not
sex is like,
willing
well,
to.
I don't want to do
For
that.
sure.
So then
For sure, I get that.
she's getting to the end of her life, saying,
Now regretting
what
it.
There are no
was that worth
children
it?
around her to love her,
Right. For
grandchildren, and there's that regret that what's really important to a woman, the most important thing that God has instilled in a woman is the nurturing, matriarchal rearing of children, and that's like that. But that's not to say. Now let me qualify this too, because there's the Christian aspect, and as Christians, I've been thinking a lot about this. There's a passage that Paul talks about in Corinthians that he says, "I desire that you stay single, because when you marry, you have to worry about worldly concerns.
Yeah.
But I desire that you stay single so that you can pursue Christ." And so as a Christian, I would say, if there's any women out there who have some regret in the past, a relationship with Christ can meet all of those desires that you have.
Yeah.
They can meet all of those desires of rearing children, of having a husband that you may not have. Maybe you're single, maybe you're lonely. Come to Christ and Christ will fill that gap. And I think that's the heart of what Paul talks about, because I was thinking, man, that's crazy. Like, if Paul got his way and every Christian lived up to Paul's high standards, no Christian would reproduce. Because we'd all be single. But that just goes to show, it's like there is this this amazing relationship that we as Christians can have with Christ that fills those gaps.
That's so good.
You know?
That's really good.
And I can see where she's coming from too, because when I was working in corporate America, this guy and myself, we had similar positions, and then I found out that he was making a lot more than I was, and his work ethic was not up to, I felt, the standard that I was working at. So I can understand where she's coming from, where there is this competitiveness in the workforce, whether you're going to be a huge entrepreneur with whatever it is as a woman. But I can understand that. And to be honest and vulnerable, I felt like I got to a place where I was like, he wasn't a believer or anything, but I felt like I got to a place where I'm like, I think God favors men like over women. And so it started, like Caleb, you were saying, like, I had to go to God with this and be like, God, please work on my heart, because I don't want to have this resentment towards men, thinking that God favors them, that God loves us all uniquely as we are. But I 100% can understand if my trajectory of my thoughts didn't change, I feel like I would end up in the position that she's in. But because obviously God has been working on my heart, I feel like, okay, you know what? Do unto the Lord, do whatever you do, Colossians, as if you're doing it for the Lord. That's one thing that I had to hold on to during that season of my life, where I was like, no, I really feel like I got to work on this.
Ashlee brought up a really good point at the very beginning, because she had mentioned that you have to really look at why this woman had this spirit of competitiveness and what was going on in her life, and how did she grow up, and what were the factors that made her say, I don't want to go down the route that traditional women go down. Right. I need to achieve an amount of success. I need to be better than men. I need to do it myself. I need to be on top. I'm going to work tooth and nail. I'm not going to sleep. Hustle culture, all of these things, which is generally not how women are built. Even the most competitive women, we like to work as a team. It's just kind of how we're built. For her to have this, break the glass ceiling at all costs type of mentality. Right. There's a lot of trauma that would cause a woman to have that type of a mindset. And because of that trauma, when she reached her success, there was something missing. Right. Which totally comes down to what Pastor Caleb was saying of, you can achieve all of these things, but it's really, truly only through Christ that you're going to feel fulfilled and whole. And whole. So
That's so good.
Yeah. Right. And it's been said, I've heard it's been said, I think Jordan Peterson said this, that women in general, there's always outliers, but women in general gravitate towards people and men gravitate toward things. And so even like when you look at Sweden, which is the most egalitarian society, feminist society, there is still a natural bent that women choose to pursue careers that focus on people, like nursing and you know all of these these other teaching and that have to do with people. And so when a woman matures and she does like start to regret, man, I wish I had children. Because why? Because she values people. She values relationships. She values human beings. Where men in general, they're more ideological driven. They're more into engineering. They're into, you know, building things and so on. And so when I say like there is a natural law, that's one aspect of what I mean by that.
To the creative difference between men and women. Like, in the same way you're saying like there isn't a lot of women who are going to lineman school. Linemen make like $120 to $180 an hour. Like if you're graduating high school as a woman, like go to lineman school, you know, like go work, go 95 feet in the air and run electrical. Go work on train tracks and make $70 an hour. Go into engineering and I'm open. I may be ignorant to say, well, the opportunity is not there for us. I don't know that because you know, I know many guys who have grown up in very, very poverty situations who make it to those areas. So there are a lot of occupations. You could go be a contractor, and there are women contractors out there. They make good money, you know? So there are opportunity ways that work with your hands, but that's where I say, where I'm hearing what you're saying is that there are creative differences amongst men and women. It just so happens that the jobs where you work with people usually are paid the least, you know? So, you know, that's for men and women, you know? So teachers are paid the least and counselors are paid the least and by and large pastors and work nonprofit people are paid the least. Homeless shelters workers are paid the least. Because when you work with people, it's not a trade-based system. So if I hire a contractor or when I have a plumber come to my house and he tells me it costs $700 to unclog it, I don't have a choice. But if I go to a counselor and he tells me, oh, it's $200, I'm like, well, my brain's not that messed up. I'll go look for another guy, you know, like, and so you know, like that's part of the differences I think of so when you're talking about more, maybe men as a whole, maybe quote unquote paid more. Well, men as a whole are going into trades that are making society run. They're running, they're in electrical, they're in sewage, they're in electricity, they're in the things that you and I cannot live our life without. And do I think it's unfair that people who work with people get paid at least amount like that? I mean, totally. But at the same time, I'm not an economist. I don't know what are the financial
for equal work. I totally believe in equal pay for equal work. So if you got a man and a woman doing the same job and doing the same, producing the same amount of, a woman should be paid as much as a man.
And if that's not happening, then it's completely unethical. Like I don't know, Nancy. I'm going to take Nancy's truth for her truth. So if that's the case and she was misappropriately paid compared to another man, then that's ethically wrong. You know, 100%. You know, and I think workplaces probably should, but again, it's easier said than done, should support women more in maternity leave and other things like that. But at the same time, companies have to run. So it takes a big decision. If you're a company that just works in profit, then you can build in a person's maternity leave within the profit of the company. But when you're talking about maybe an education system where that classroom can't run without a teacher. You're talking about nonprofits where they're not in control of their money. A nonprofit can't raise the price of something to be able to compensate for a package that you're trying to do for an employee. It's much harder than it is. And I think a lot of people aren't able to process in the eyes of an owner who has to deal with a bottom line of $1 or else the company does not exist next year. So there's a lot of those elements that I think go into play that maybe some countries have figured out, maybe some haven't, but you know, it's not as easier said than done.
A great example you can address kind of connecting with what you're saying just came to my mind, but the difference between WNBA players
I was
and
just
NBA
about
players.
to
I was thinking the same thing.
For sure.
But it's like, what's wrong with you?
We've had this conversation multiple times because I say it all the time because
Let me give some context though before you.
Uh-oh.
Ashlee was a professional soccer player. Okay, so whatever her opinion's going to be, know that in the light of it, she was a 5-time national champion in college. She was the captain of her soccer team at University of Florida. She was in the U.S. national team.
Mm-hmm.
She was a professional soccer player and could not put food on her table, and so eventually had to retire. Now you could share your opinion for anyone
That's so
listening
no,
or watching.
yeah,
because
no,
this
I
is
was-
coming from someone who has lived that life.
It's
you know?
really to what I say. I get why. I understand why there's certain levels of why women's soccer and men's soccer may be different, or WNBA versus NBA. And my reason for saying it in the light of things would say because there's no one in the stadium. There's
Right.
no one's in the stands.
Yeah.
Now, women's soccer now in certain cities have packed out stadiums. I can't speak for the specific club or the team, but when I was on the team, it was handled by a manager. The manager paid for the team, paid for the uniforms, paid for the players that they wanted, and then we had to be with host families. With host families, we probably got a per diem of maybe $125 a week. Luckily, my host family, everywhere I went, when I was in Chicago, I was with my aunt. When I was in California, I was with my mom. So I did not have to worry about living with somebody I didn't know.
How much did you make as a professional soccer player?
Oh, so when I played, it was called the Orange County Waves when we were out here. And in the season, I think I made $2,500.
Holy
What?
smokes.
$2,500
As one of the top
for-
in your sports.
So $2,500.
You know.
So
A month?
right. No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
For the
The
whole
season.
For the whole season.
Oh, for the
Yes.
whole season.
For the whole
Yeah.
season. Because we
Yeah.
stayed at the house. We stayed within a host family. So you're not having to
What
pay.
year? Can you give context?
So
with
this
the year?
was 2010.
1980.
I was like, okay, that makes sense.
No, 2011.
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
2011 to 2013.
Yeah,
or whatever.
2013 I stopped. And then we played in Chicago, and that was almost,
10
I
years
played
ago.
with a team called Chicago Red Stars. And then we ended up.
But in the club, you make money based off of jerseys that are sold,
jerseys are sold,
and
jerseys
T-shirts
are-
that are
yes.
sold,
And then
and
a lot-
fans that come to the
Yes, and
stadium.
So, yes.
So
and then,
if
and then you
know-
get all your what is it called, endorsements. So that's
Yeah.
how women make their money now. But this is hard work that they have to be good enough to get those endorsements
And popular enough.
And
There's a popularity contest involved.
completely,
Yeah.
Right.
which is fine. But they do pinpoint certain people that they believe will bring in the income, bring in the girls, bring in the fans, which is sad to see for women that they have to work that hard when there's 10 stars on the Celtics, there's 10 stars on the Lakers, and they get X amount of money. But their stadiums are full.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're
for
selling
sure.
popcorn.
which is why you see soccer. Which is why you see soccer leaning into the LGBTQ movement, not because they believe in it. There's
Yep.
dollar
Business
bills
support
behind
behind
it.
it.
Always
The
about
LGBT
dollar,
Because they've
dollar.
reached their ceiling.
Support
They can't
it.
make
Yeah.
any more
Support
money.
it. Absolutely.
So for
Absolutely.
them, they're like, hey,
Redirect their
if you
market.
wear this with a
Yeah.
rainbow on it, more
Right.
gay fans
Yep.
come to the games. More gay fans buy the jersey. More gay fan. It's a matter of economic. That's
Yeah.
why I always say a lot of these businesses that are making their moves, whether it be in the black
Right.
community,
Yeah.
Hispanic community, dollar
Intentional.
bills.
Money,
That's
that's it.
what it is.
It's not right or wrong.
it.
They
No,
just
yeah.
follow the money.
Absolutely.
capitalism.
Absolutely.
And the WNBA loses money.
Yep.
The,
Yeah.
the NBA has to subsidize the
For
WNBA.
sure. I worked for
Yeah.
the Sparks, and it was crazy because during the summer, the WNBA players would go over. They would make their money overseas. They would go spend the time off that other athletes have
Yeah.
to go actually make money to support while they're not making any money when they come back to the States. It's so sad, and it is because there's barely anybody in the stadiums
Yeah.
when I worked for
Someone
the Sparks.
who recently said that someone in the room might know. They recently did like a survey of WNBA fans. Was it you, Jermaine? What's the statistic? The loose.
Talking about revenue splitting.
So they were talking about revenue split. The fans that watch the WNBA, and they said the large majority of fans who watch the WNBA are either ex-women who used to play basketball, or it was
Yes.
families that they're
that
so.
are attending 100%.
So the only way you have a fan is if they had
Right.
personal experience in playing that
Right.
game. Where
100%.
in football, You know, that there's a lot of guys who have never played football who are football fans, right? Like it's a totally different economic stream of economics.
Do you guys think that's ever going to change, or
and that's
can
what I
it
was going to
change?
ask. Like,
No.
what do you guys think of that? Like, how do you think?
No,
that
because it's not
figures
as
within-
entertaining because the performance level isn't the same because men are naturally built in these specific sports. I mean, you'll never have a women's football league. Let's be honest.
But I mean, but when
Well,
it
they
comes
have
to
it, but the women are wearing
they've allowed-
lingerie.
Oh, God.
But what is it, a lingerie football league?
Yeah.
What they wear?
Like, they have a football league for women, but they wear nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, are we watching their talent?
Or the
I would say that's the only sport
Yeah.
that there is where it might be close to an even playing field when it comes
Tennis,
to
volleyball?
is tennis.
Tennis.
Well, here's my thing.
I want to say track and field.
Let me
Tennis
speak.
Oh, track and field.
Yeah, track and field too. But even them, their money comes from sponsorships,
Oh,
and they're
absolutely.
not, really
Yeah,
making.
But I
Oh,
do
yeah.
have an opinion on this. People like to see talented and skilled people. So by and large, Nancy, no, I don't think women's sports will ever take off because women as a whole, their bodies, literally, the Lord God did not make their bodies
Right.
to be talented in those areas. The shape of a woman, the way that a woman's been designed, which is to rear children, to have large hips, to have a larger body. You know, it's like
Help me with soccer.
and a lot of Ashlee had powerful thighs. Soccer worked for her in certain areas, but at the end of the day, you know, when you're watching a man who is built to be able to be a physical specimen, who is built to go and scavenge and hunt and search for food, like that is the way that he was created. So when you watch a sport from a man, you want to see him do incredible things. That's why
Physically.
that's why you have guys who are 350 pounds with beer bellies who watch football every Sunday because they cannot do that.
Yeah.
So they
It's
so
entertainment.
it's like
It's an
this-
entertainment
you know,
aspect to it.
Gotcha.
And so for women, we just said it. There are women we watch.
Yeah.
We love to see Allison Felix run in the
Love it.
Olympics.
Yeah.
She
Love
is
it.
an incredibly gifted, talented athlete. No one sits there and thinks it's unfair or anything like that
Right.
of what she's going. We watch her, men and women,
yeah.
Right.
men and women
and
lately.
gymnastics too.
Yeah.
Do every
Because
year with
women
the
are-
gymnastics.
Their bodies are built for that.
We watch every year at the you can't see men do what women do in
Yeah.
gymnastics and vice versa in gymnastics. You cannot
So
see the
do you
women
think-
do the rings
Are you saying
the
it
way that a
depends on
man
the
does.
sport?
That's what I'm saying is it depends on the sport, but also it depends on the
Anatomy.
category of sports and the anatomy you're saying. So because is
Biological anatomy.
But I would also say it depends on the culture too, because our culture, with obviously in the States, is basketball, football. You go over. We were in Israel. They're like soccer all day.
Right.
They're
Oh,
football
well,
all
that's
day.
a world
And so
sport,
that's
yeah.
a world
World,
sport
yeah.
in the sense that like that's why that's so big overseas,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of the women in soccer go overseas because they will get packed out stadiums. They will get the income that they want and they need, but they have to
Right.
make that sacrifice to go over there as
Yeah.
a woman because they're not going to get it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is like, you know, if you just take a brush and you broad stroke and you say, oh, are all women's sports ever going to become a level where you can get great financial pay or whatever? Probably not, you know,
I
but
agree.
in certain cultures, in certain countries, in certain
You can have pockets
sports,
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like me and Caleb ran cross country and track. Caleb was a lot more gifted and had sponsorships and full ride scholarships and all that. But, you know, because we grew up, me and Caleb and Nathan, we didn't play basketball, we didn't play football.
Yeah.
We ran cross country and track. We rode road bikes. So one of our biggest frustrations was always how those things aren't popular in America, and how we even know guys who ran track who were literally the nation's fastest people, but they were also bartenders on the weekends to pay their bills.
Oh yeah, you're talking about
But
like
these
extreme
guys-
sports. Like
No,
is that-
track athletes.
or just
like
track?
we need
Okay.
because they make their money only during certain times of the year because it's
Well,
not.
there's a
it's not
difference
built as
between
sport, you know?
individual sports and team sports.
Yeah.
true.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
But that's what I'm
individual
saying.
sports,
It's not just
more
a
like-
women's thing. Like
yeah,
in men's
yeah.
sports, the
Yeah,
ones that are
it's-
not
it's
that
very-
interested in, you're not making a living. We
No,
knew
you're
guys
not.
who were bartenders
Yeah.
who were literally the top fastest men in the world in
That's
track.
crazy.
Well,
but they worked
with
as a bartender
individual
on
sports.
the
You're only
weekends,
really
you
making
know?
money if you're the top three, and that all
Yeah.
comes from sponsorships. It
Yeah.
doesn't come
Yeah.
from like a monthly
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
coming to you from the organization or whatever.
So it works for men too, though.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the same coin, it's not just women.
Well,
you know,
to say that it's only men transgenders into women who end up dominating the women's sports.
is
It's
so
never the opposite.
inappropriate.
So that goes to show, okay, there's a difference.
Right,
It's
right.
anatomy. It all boils down to basically anatomy, because no woman who converts to a man will ever dominate women,
Never.
men's sports the way a man does who transitions into a woman.
Yeah. And
know?
naturally, as a husband, like if I met my wife, because she was retired already, but if I met her and she was in her prime, like I would have done what I needed to do as a husband to financially support her to chase that dream if she wanted to. But not everyone would be so blessed enough to be in a situation. By the time I met her, she had already retired.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I met her and she's like, I want to continue to play professional soccer, I'd be like, well, then I will work my butt off because you make $2,500 a season.
Yeah.
But I want you to be able to chase your dreams.
Yeah.
So I will come in together and I will compensate that. But at the end of the day, it's because you love it and you're passionate about it.
Right.
Not because it's not because it's bringing money into our home or has the potential to do that. And people just have to make that decision. So for her, it got to the point where she was like, I'm done having my parents subsidize this passion. I'm done having to work a job plus work a professional career as an athlete. So I'm going to walk away from this.
And the injuries that come with it, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was playing in Chicago, I was working with special needs during the day and having to go to practice at night. Like
Yeah.
I had a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's hard because there's a lot of girls that are still in it, obviously having one goal in mind, being on the national team, making it to that level. But there's a lot of sacrifices, and I would say financial sacrifices that they're making on their own choice to realize and look back and say, what was it all for? And so that's something for me to say that I know, like now being out of that realm, I'm more than just a soccer player. That was just in my identity. And I think that's where a lot of us women get so caught up in, is in an identity in something, because I have to achieve something to be something. And so, yeah.
Well, I got married at 22, and my wife just sacrificed everything for my career. And we started having kids right away. We have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 7. And recently we came to an agreement that I want her, and she wants to focus on her passions that she put aside for me, for the sake of me and for the sake of raising my kids. And I'm all for that. Yeah. I want her to be happy. I want her to be her highest fulfilled self. Yeah. And even raising an 11-year-old daughter, like I lean more towards conservative, patriarchal, but that doesn't mean I want my 11-year-old daughter to just live for her husband and to just only think about kids and her husband all day. I still want my daughter to have passions and pursuits and a skill that she's passionate about. And so there is a balance there. There is a compromise within a marriage that I think needs to happen. But at the end of the day, though, I would say for a woman, she really should be thinking about having children if she's ever going to foresee herself regretting that later in life. Really start thinking about in your 20s. Not all. Some women are completely fine not having kids, and being single their whole life. God bless them, But I think for women in their 20s, really think through if that's a desire of yours, and maybe organize your life to make that a reality, and don't get caught up in this whole feminist nonsense.
Well, the world's view of
extremism,
because it even goes into men
that we're talking about.
I was just at something this week, and Phil was with me where a guy I know who's in his 60s who I really look up to. I put together this thing where I brought a bunch of pastors together, and then my dad spoke to them, but also another guy that I really look up to. But he was talking to us, and he had a moment where he was talking, because he's very successful. He advises for, Hollywood production companies. He advises for Google and all these. He's very, very successful. And he looked at us and he said, I recently came to the realization that and he starts crying really hard. And he goes, I was there for my kids, but I was never present. Mm-hmm. And he goes, and he starts crying. And he's like, I would go to the games, but when I'm really thinking about it, and he's like weeping and he's crying. When I was at those games, all I talked about is the moment this is over, I got stuff I got to do. The moment that, and like there's like, it's a room full of like 20 guys who are all very successful in their own right. And like half the room is just like, because these guys are successful too. And they're just bawling. And he's just like, I just wish I could do it over. I just wish I could do it over. This guy's in his 60s. And like there really wasn't a dry eye in the room. And it was just like, even the point, like it made Phil change yesterday because Phil works really hard. But yesterday he was like, I'm sitting with my family. I'm going to watch my kids perform at church tonight. I'm like, dude, do it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Phil, prior to, honestly, because we didn't talk about it, is that what made you make that a priority? Was that meeting? Yeah. Was that because Phil's like, hey man, I'm sorry I wasn't with you tonight and help you. I said, dude, I caught it. I read the room. I caught the moment. Like, be there for your kids. I get it. You know, like, and so even men have to do that same thing. But ours is viewed in the light of also of I got to put food on my kid's table and I got to do all these things like that. But even men at the end of their life, they too have that regret. Not in the I wish I had a family. It's I wish I wish my family liked me.
Right.
That's why matriarchs are so important, because you could have a father that no one likes, but almost always the matriarch is the glue that holds the family together.
Oh, yeah.
The woman.
Yeah.
The woman is almost always, it's a rare occurrence that it's the grandfather, the man that like bonds the family. It can happen, but really it that's why in the Jewish community, you're Jewish by your mother, not by your father, because the importance of the matriarchy and what that brings into the family and how grandma, how mom, they keep the family together. If you left the family just to the father, no one would talk to each other. So it is just as important, but it is how that's divided and what that looks like, you know. And so even when he said that, I was just like, man, I'm going to go into my next year and you know, I'm gonna be way more aware, and I'm gonna be way more because I'm going to stuff. But when he said that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I'm at stuff, but I'm also, you know, thinking about work or thinking about this or that, and I was like, I need to. I think almost every guy in that room when he talked kind of had a wake up call to be like, yeah, be successful. But when you're present, be present. Turn it off. Not really just your phone. I know we always say, "Oh, I put my phone away," but like your thoughts. You can put your phone away, but your thoughts can still run and do everything it needs to do. Like turn that off. You know. So I think it can be on both sides, just different.
Exactly.
Applied different ways. You know?
I think I don't know if we do, but Gabe, wasn't there a video that we were going to show today too about the emotions of a man?
Yes. Do we want to cue to that now?
Let's do it.
I guess Ashlee won. She's the boss.
No, because I'm thinking that
she's the matriarchy.
Yes, shush. I think it goes
Listen
into
to the
what he's saying.
matriarchy.
If you listen,
It's good. No, you're producing good.
Don't never be vulnerable in front of your woman. First of all, let's get that out the way. Never be vulnerable in front of your woman because she will leave you. Because she will leave you. Because she will leave you and she will not respect you. And she won't submit to your leadership. You have a responsibility as a man to make sure that you're the leader and you display the attributes that come with leadership. It's your responsibility. If you need to cry, you better cry in the dark. And if you got something that you're going through, and if you got something to go for real, and if you got something to go, depression does not exist for men.
Great. Gosh.
So let me expand to that thought because
I'm gonna get a cookie.
It's going around a lot.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying I agree with this. This is just the thought that's going around.
Yeah.
So basically the thought is don't be emotional with your woman, with your wife, with your girlfriend, because women weren't built to bear that burden, and they will lose respect for you if you are emotional with them. If you have an issue, if you have a complaint, say it to your friends, say it to your brothers, say it to other men, but never be vulnerable or emotional around your wife, your woman, because for women, it's all about respect. And you want them to respect you. And the more you show that side of you, the more, they will feel superior to you, in the sense they will see your weakness and they will use that against you. And eventually they will disrespect you and lose respect for you entirely if you keep
the black community
crying to them and showing your emotions to the woman. That's more meat to the bones. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that. That's kind of in line with what he's saying. So what do you guys think?
Well, I just don't think that vulnerability is a weakness. So when you're talking about don't show your vulnerability because now your woman's going to look at you like you're like a sad dog that she has to take care of, and she's not going to look at you as a man. I just personally don't agree with that mindset because I just don't think that vulnerability is a weakness. Now, I'm not talking about a man who comes home and constantly complains and puts that burden on the woman of all of his issues now transfer over to the woman who's already carrying all the issues of the children and all those things. But I don't think that, and I don't ever want to create a space where if my husband is truly going through something, that he doesn't feel like he can talk to me because I'm going to look at him as less of a man. I just cannot subscribe to that type of a mindset personally.
No, that's really good. I think that when it comes to every man is created differently. When I think of Adam doesn't show a lot of emotions, and then that's just her personality. But when he's vulnerable with me, it does not show weakness. It almost shows more comfort for me as a wife, because that vulnerability is saying, I trust you with what I'm saying. I trust you that you're going to protect me. I trust you that you're going to listen to me as a wife or hear me out as a wife. Vulnerability is, in my eyes, very, very healthy. And obviously a relationship, but I also think in the dating and the single, because and vulnerability is me being honest and open with him. Vulnerability, I don't believe, in my eyes, is an emotion. I think vulnerability is having the honest truth of what is going on. Now, if he's weeping and crying, I have to, as a person, reflect on what I may have done, maybe what the situation is going at hand. But I've maybe seen my husband cry twice. It was when my father passed away, and then when we got in an argument, when I made him really, really mad. And that, when I saw that vulnerability, when I saw the emotion of tears, I saw the pure heart of him. Didn't make him less of a man, but it showed what I could do to
Made
him.
her know that I'm human. She thinks I'm a robot.
Right. But when the vulnerability is being honest and open. With the crying and when he has cried before, that doesn't turn me off as a woman. I have seen my dad show emotions.
But I also don't get mad.
No, you don't get mad. No, he doesn't get mad.
But
no.
That's where I'm saying, like, I have a stoicness period in my emotions. Like, because I know men that are like, they'll never cry or be vulnerable to their women.
Oh, right.
But they do tantrums all the time, dude.
Yes.
Slamming doors,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
That's where you lose respect.
That's not vulnerability. That's
where, to me,
emotion.
that's the kind of guy that guy's talking about.
Absolutely.
You ain't allowed to be depressed.
Yeah.
You ain't allowed to be vulnerable. Save that stuff. But at the same time, and I think in many cultural communities too, they also put up with the other side of things.
Yeah.
Slamming of doors, leaving for the whole night. Oh, I came back from the bar because I left to the bar for 7 hours because I was so mad.
Well, that's what he
and
said.
I'm going
He
through
said,
so
go to the
much.
gym.
And it's like
Why are you going to the gym?
That's just as bad as crying to your woman.
Yeah, I'm like,
because it's
dude, you're
emotion.
weak.
You're being controlled by your emotions, whether it's
But I
crying
think
or
that
whether it's being angry.
vulnerability is a type of a communication outlet.
Right.
And it can be, like Ashlee said, a very healthy way of communicating.
Right.
Of you're basically, when you're vulnerable with your wife, you're saying, like she said, I trust you with this information. I know that you are my partner, and we're going to be able to work together to get over whatever it is that I'm going through.
Here's and you're saying good. I just want to add on, and I still want you to comment on it. Is here's what often happens for a man with their woman and vice versa, is that when a man is vulnerable, many times the woman treats that as a competition of we're one-upping each other. So when the man comes like, man, just work and I just this and the finances, the bill, and the woman's like, well, you ain't got, I got the kids. What do you think about me? I'm doing the kids and I'm still going out here and work and I'm doing your laundry and and he's like, dang.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not gonna
And
tell
mind you,
nothing,
that's the average marriage in the world.
100%.
Like, we're talking from a Christian perspective here, and
doing
we
it in
kind
a
of
perfect world.
Yeah, but the real world, that happens more often than not. I mean,
90%
It
of the
happens
time.
in the Christian world. I mean, I would be
it still
lying
does.
if
No,
I
but we
didn't
talk-
say-
It
if I
still
said I
does.
wouldn't do
It still
that.
does. But
What
there
Caleb's
is an
saying,
element of the woman will use that. The wife will use that against you sooner or later. In the sense of
well,
now,
I
the ideal. I'm not talking about the ideal and the spirit-filled woman who's
I'm not
just
talking about that either. No.
I'm talking about like the average secular,
Men
woman.
shut down. Hold on. Men shut down for those reasons because a woman every single day, and it's true. I mean, it's true in our marriage. Almost every day, my wife has a. Now, I'm not going to use the word a complaint, but processing her emotions out loud to me almost every day. Almost every day I come home and she is out loud processing what frustrated her in the day, what was weighty in her in the day, and I would say probably for me once to 3 times a year, I will tell her anything that's weighing me down. In the sense, but that's also my personality. But because I'm a grin down and bear it type of person. But I say that to say that for a woman, you only have a few opportunities to show your husband or your man that your honesty and your vulnerability will be safe and handled well. Because he does not offer that very often.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
And
good.
so in theory to say, we think it's sexy when a man's vulnerable.
Right.
Okay. That's fine. But let him do it once or twice.
But I would
and
say,
he's
what's
gonna
the
make the
context of you
decision.
doing it? Because like, if you were just to come home and you see me frustrated and wreaking havoc, and then you come home, well, I'm tired too. Yeah, we're both on the same level.
That's not what we're talking about.
Well, that's what
And
I'm
me
asking.
and you don't do that.
No,
But-
that's what I'm saying. So on what level are these conversations happening with these individuals? Because you guys are saying, well, yeah, the woman will do the tick for tack, but is it a sit-down conversation where you're having a healthy conversation? Like you and I go into dinner just saying like
but
this
the
is
average person
I
does
get
not
that.
have
That's
the
why we're
healthy
here to say it on a
conversation.
podcast so everyone can listen to not do the tick for tack, to say have these healthy conversations with your spouse or in a relationship, to have that vulnerability of those conversations that they're healthy, to where it's not ever a tick for tack, to say, hey, you know what, when you came home yesterday, I really felt like you were off. Do you have an attitude? How's the day going? However that may be, not in the spur of the moment. You know me, Sanaz, you know me. If you give me a spur of a moment, you're going to get it back.
Yeah, but I think the aspect of this video is we're not talking about a man who comes in and slams the door, and it's a man who's broken. Like he is broken, and he takes a step forward to show his vulnerability. How a woman responds in that moment will dictate whether that man will ever do that again or ever take steps to trust you, whether it be the financial burden, whether it be the burden of balancing the family, whether it be the burden of work or whatever it be. Because for a woman, in the average woman, you guys do it all the time. You do it you don't even, on average, you don't even treat your husband special in the information you share. The information you're sharing of stress you share with your husband, you share it with your mom, you share it with your friends, you share it with, I'm not talking about us, I'm saying the average woman in a relationship.
We know
she's
that,
telling
Adam. We know.
everyone, right?
You're not putting all your
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
in general.
Because me and Ashlee have a very healthy way that we process, and we could go more into the practical of how we do it, but just talking about in theory, like, for the average woman, like it's nothing new when you're sharing. So to you, when a man shares it, like it's just like, oh yeah, because when we women talk, we talk, oh yeah, you're mad too, so am I. And that's the way that women naturally converse. They respond to women with advice of how they're going through it too. And then that's how a woman goes, oh, I'm normal. But a man does not do the same.
So let me ask you this. Are you saying that when a man opens up and is vulnerable to a woman, the woman doesn't take it as seriously because we unload at such a low level at all times that we don't realize that the man has reached his limit of stress to the point where they're releasing that to his wife, and a woman might not think that they are at that level of stress?
Well, I think there's an element of that, but I think it's also a woman is trying, and consider it to be sincere. A woman is trying to empathize with the man by doing what she does with other women, by saying, I'm sorry you're going through that too, so am I.
Right.
And then they go, oh my gosh, a man does not want to hear that. Like when a man talks to one of his boys doesn't go like, here's what he'd be like, man, that sucks, bro. Sorry. That's all another man wants to hear from another man.
You want us to say that?
You know, like.
So what do you want to hear
sorry
from?
you're going
So
through
what?
that.
So
I think,
practically,
you know,
Well, it's
everyone's
the difference.
different. It's hearing.
Think about how churches preach on Father's Day compared to Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And you'll get
yeah.
So Mother's Day,
it's a
Mother's
celebration.
Day, you need to build them up. You need to say how amazing women are. You need to Father's Day is you guys ain't doing good enough. We gotta be stronger, better men. Like the men don't necessarily want to hear, oh pobrecito, come on, you can do better.
Here's
You're
your flower.
amazing. You're amazing. You know, men more in general, we want to be listen,
challenged.
suck it up. But you know.
Raise your
Pick up your
family.
bootstraps,
So then I would ask-
get to work, put your emotions aside.
Right.
I would say err. I think there does need to be a balance, but I think in general, err on the side of not being overly emotional with your wife. And
I feel like that's different
wait.
than vulnerability.
Wait. But that's what he was talking about. That's the practical application of being vulnerable. Is what is you being expressing your emotions with your wife, treating her as a therapist or a counselor. You would treat a therapist or a counselor. What I'm saying, err on the side. 75% of marriage of divorces right now are being initiated by women.
Yeah.
And one of those reasons, I guarantee you, is not my man is not being vulnerable enough with me, or he's not emotional enough. I think a lot of it has to do with a loss of respect. And I do think there's a correlation between respect and a man who's always walking around being mopey, complaining, being irritable. What do you think about this? This hurt my feelings. This hurt my feelings. So what I'm saying is, in general, a man needs to be the source of strength. He needs to be the rock of his house. And if you're to err on the side of taking your emotions and expressing those in other outlets with your friends, with your brothers, with other men. Don't put that on women, because I don't think women were meant to bear that.
But
Yeah,
here's the thing, though. I think as wives, we don't want you to take what is truly bothering you outside. We want to be a part of the solution, and we want to be able to help you through that. Now, I understand, don't put any additional stress on your wife by burdening her with your burdens. But at the same time, I don't know how I would feel if Nathan was taking all of his stress and talking to other people about it and not talking to me about it at all. I don't know how I would feel about that. Well, I probably did. As the person who probably hears all of his stress. He's like, no, you're good.
I think there's
Hold on. I want to comment, Nathan. I'm sorry if you're. We'll bring you on. Well, and we're on a podcast. We did this for a reason.
You can be honest.
Is not one of your complaints about him that he does not talk about the work at home? He doesn't bring stuff to you at the home?
It is something that we have talked about, the fact that for many years, I mean, I've gotten a lot better at the sense of like.
Hold on. I'm not talking about how you receive it. I'm saying he does not bring the stress from work home. Correct.
That's
and
practical example.
You've always wanted him to, but he does not want to do, nor does many men want to do that. But he's calling me.
Right.
He's calling me, hey, this is what I'm stressed about. But when he gets home, and you're like, tell me what's going on at work. Tell me what's going on hard. You have, over the years, us all being so close, it has bothered you that he does not vocalize it that much with you, but there is a reason why he does not. It's not because of him. It's because of him being a man who that is part. Now, there are different men and it can be different, but by and large, that is, I don't come home with Ashlee and be like, let me tell you about my. I will share those things when I got to share context of why I feel like it's going to affect the home right now, and I will be vulnerable, and I'll be a vulnerable person in the sense that if I know it's going to affect my ability to be a father and a husband in this moment, then I'm going to bring you in to help you understand why it is very difficult for me to whatever. And my wife has been incredible over the years to empathize with that. To ask, what do you need me to do? Do I need to give you space? Do you need me to get the boys out of the house?
Yeah.
Do you need to just call your boys? Do you need to go out to dinner with your friends? And it's always different, but I'll say, yeah, I think I do got to call my friends. She'd be like, you should do that.
Yeah.
What Ashlee's not saying is, I'm going to get a babysitter and I'm going to take you out and we're going to talk about it all night. Because that's not what Adam wants to do.
Yeah.
That's what she wants to do. Yeah, that's what she wants to do. If I say, you know what, babe, just call a sitter and me and you go to dinner and I just want to tell you it all. She'll be like, yes, girl,
100%.
But that sounds more
that
about
shows your vulnerability that you were, and that's not. I wouldn't say that's overly emotional. You're just saying, hey, I'm struggling with something right now, and she's helping guide through how you process that.
And that's healthy. That's what I'm saying. I'm vulnerable.
Yeah, but I think how men
but I don't do it every day,
100%.
and I don't do it all the time. If I did, in Caleb's regard, the amount of pressure, Phil's in here. He's one of my best friends. The amount of frustration that Phil sees from me far outweighs the amount of frustration that my wife sees of me.
That's how it should be. There
100%.
The men in your life, they need to be the shoulders to cry on.
Phil sees me.
That's the point.
And again, that's where the safe. Phil sees me slam the doors. Phil sees me yell. Phil sees me do those things. But when I come home, because I do not want that to translate into my home, into me as a father, and I don't do this all the time, but I refuse to take that home so that my family translates and thinks that they have failed me. Because that's a lot of times Ashlee will think that if I'm expressing something, she's thinking, what did I do to add this burden to you? And I'm like, you didn't do nothing. This is called life. Yeah. Like, I got to make sure the boys are paid for. I got to make sure you're paid for. I got to make sure this house is paid for. And you're doing it with me. You're putting in as well too. You have a job, but at the end of the day, at least in our family dynamic, the bearer of the burden of those things is me. And so my job, men are good at being stoic and listening. So men, and again, everyone can improve in certain areas, but the men come home, the wife goes, this happened with the kids, blah blah, and he's just like, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry you had a hard day. Let me massage your feet. Let me rub your back. That's kind of we would know that as a natural husband-wife thing. But I think if the role reversed and the husband was like, can you come rub my feet while I lay back and I tell you about my day? Like, I know for a woman, she would say, oh, it's a dream come true. But for a man, that does not feel good to him.
Do men, I mean, obviously we talked about this before in other episodes where men are committing, suicide. There's a higher rate of men committing that. And we just 100%. Unfortunately heard some horrific news about a man who was just 40 and he looked happy. So I'm trying to, this
is the DJ from the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yeah. He was just 40 years old. Okay. Very sad. So when I'm trying to say is, like, do men need to learn to express that more with other men then, instead of whether it's your wife or the vulnerability aspect of it? Obviously I don't know his life. I don't know what went down in his life. I'm just generalizing.
I mean, that's a great question, because it's like if you were to go and express the issues to Phil and Phil never said anything, maybe to myself, and Adam went and did something, whatever, and it comes back and I was completely blindsided. I think that goes back to what you were saying, there's a level of not knowing the work of things, but being the vulnerability of saying
that communication of
like, hey, I'm really not happy and this is what's been going on.
I think that we should. I think we should know.
I know. And not speaking on you, I'm just speaking men.
I'm saying to her point, I'm saying, like, we're talking about me stressed about work and me feeling a financial burden compared to
but for other people, right?
Depression.
Hypothetically, like, at what point are you keeping something from your wife. Like the guy in the
Because you think
video
you're less
says
of a man.
depression doesn't exist for
And-
men, and that's just not true.
But no, I don't think he's talking about the never mind, I don't know who this guy is. He's not talking about the clinical aspect of depression. He's talking about like as a man, you need to treat like depression doesn't exist because that's not going to solve your life. Now, is that a wrong outlet?
That's why it's getting men like there's a rise in suicide because of that exact mentality.
No. It could be, but there's a rise. There's a rise in the very time and age in which there's a rise, and you got to be more emotional. You got to be more feminine. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying
Clinical
be more
therapy
emotional.
is the most popular it's ever been in the world. The average man that commits suicide is going to counseling, going to a therapist.
Where are we missing it?
No.
Where are we missing the mark?
Well, I'll tell you where we're missing the mark. The gospel. I'm a pastor, so you're missing the mark. You don't have the gospel.
Jesus.
I am not
You don't
saying-
understand the gospel. It has not become a
But
reality
even
to you.
pastors
You
commit
don't know.
suicide
How
too.
do we,
like-
as wives?
But you can't do that with pastors because there are lies when it comes to that pastor suicide thing. In so many of those
I'm not
stories
saying
with
pastor
pastors,
suicide.
someone just
No,
said
I'm saying
pastors are doing it.
even
But
pastors have committed
claim to
suicide
That's
as
different.
well.
That's
But
a
the
whole
reason
different
for their
conversation.
suicides have been, and I'm not speaking on anyone's name.
No, of course,
But they
yeah.
have come
They
from,
did
from
everything.
sinful decisions a lot of times. See, no one publicizes
That part.
the
They
flesh
don't.
of the decisions. A lot of the people that you may know of, they were actively having affairs. They were actively having drug addictions. They were actively living a separate life where they would go and see prostitutes or whatever it was. So these are men where that's why I said it's the transformation of the gospel.
Right.
It's not being a Christian. Anyone could be a Christian. It's letting the gospel and I'm not talking about exterior, someone causing suicide on you because every day they've told you to kill yourself. You're not worth it.
Yeah.
That's something completely different. And I'm not touching on that. I'm talking about the weight of the decisions of the sin that we have caused and the reality of the gospel, the salvific work of Jesus, the death and resurrection, the covering of our sins.
Yeah.
If that cannot if that cannot change your life, if you cannot submit to the authority of Christ, then depression is a real thing. But everyone has depression.
Yeah.
Everybody is depressed under the weight of sin.
but that's
Everyone's
what-
under the yoke of bondage of sinful. It's going to happen. The reason why suicide raises is because in today, that is the popular way that we say is the way out of your issues.
100%. What to clarify, I'm not saying that men need to be more emotional. What I'm saying is men can interpret what this guy is saying as depression doesn't exist for men. You can't be depressed as I have these emotions that I cannot express. I can't, and so they're struggling mentally because of it. Not every man.
Well, he's
but
saying it
because of
shouldn't.
this-
He's not saying it doesn't exist because men are clearly depressed. He's saying
No.
it shouldn't exist for men
He
because
said
because
depression
as a
doesn't
man
exist for men. That's exactly what he said.
Okay, but
We interpret it
go to the
differently.
gym.
Let's go to the gym.
okay, but that's fine. But that's just that's obviously.
But you're
just,
interpreting
what
it
he's saying-
differently than what a lot of men could interpret as. We interpret as,
But
men
nobody's
shouldn't.
saying men don't experience depression.
He did.
Everybody does. Every human being
What
at
I'm
one time
saying
or
is-
another has been depressed.
I think the
Some
average
people
man
longer
hears
than
from this
others.
guy, and any of the men can hear. The average men hear from this guy. Some of the guys can't hear the video.
Where do you
but
take your problems?
Yeah,
Who do you
the-
cry to?
The average guy would hear
Not
this
your
guy.
woman. That's what he's saying.
And not
Don't
say
cry to
that
your
he's
woman.
not saying depression doesn't exist. What he's saying is, in the light of what is going to fix your life and what you're going to do, is depression does not exist. It's not going to help you get out of your rut to just be depressed. So he's saying you push that aside. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that. I think that when you have, but that in light of what he's saying is, as a man, your first step to getting out of your problem is not saying I'm depressed. And as a Christian pastor, I would agree with that. Now, this guy, I don't know anything about him, but he's not saying it as a Christian. But I would agree too, as a Christian pastor who has, we know biblical counseling. When I'm talking with someone and they say, I think I'm depressed, pastor, I don't say, okay, let's pause and dig into your depression as a biblical counselor. What I do is we start to uncover God's plan for their life and uncover the need for salvation in Jesus Christ. So I'm going to, for a moment, I'm going to push aside the conversation of depression, and let's talk about the value you have in life.
I think
let's
that's
talk about
same
the
for
purpose
women
you have
as
in
well.
life.
I think
well, I would.
it
Yeah,
should
I mean,
be,
I'm not disagreeing
that should
with
be the
that.
same conversation with women. So what I'm saying is there is this stigma and has been for years that men, you do not show emotion, you do not cry, you do not do all this. So when I look at this man who's saying depression doesn't exist for men, I am not. Maybe it's just because I'm female. Interpret it how you're explaining it right now. I am interpreting it how society tells men you can't have emotion, and that's what I think is unhealthy.
But I don't think that equals emotion.
We're being that's what's been told to us for now 15, 20 years, and it's obviously not helping the situation.
For
So I don't
sure.
think that's the answer.
Right.
I don't think the answer is men should be more like women and be more
Right.
emotional.
Right. For
Because it's obviously the fruit isn't manifesting good things. So it's obviously a different type of a different answer. You're talking to somebody who's gone through the lowest pit of depression.
Yeah.
I had a rope tied around my neck. Okay, I almost killed myself multiple times. So I can speak from personal experience. And the things that helped me get out of that rut, but the thing is,
You've also done it all too. You've gone to biblical counseling, therapy.
It's a multitude of things. But what, in connection with this verse, what I don't think helped me was talking about it with my wife. Because she has enough to worry about. She has to raise my 3 kids. She has to do her part-time job. She has her own. She has to, have all these other things. And as a man, I need to be a rock. So anytime I told her how low I was, I did not come out of that situation feeling better. I felt like I put a burden on her that she wasn't supposed to bear. I felt like, because I need my wife to be as happy as possible for the sake of my children. And so I regret being as vulnerable as I was in the past with her, because I don't want to do anything that's going to affect her mood and bring her down in a way more than she's already dealing with her own issues. I don't want to add my issues on top of her. Because like I said, my primary concern is her being the best, most happy, most joyful mom for my kids.
So is there a way to let
what I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is, for me, it was my dad, calling my dad. It was calling my brothers. It was having a Christian counselor. We're not against therapy here. It was a multitude of things. It was going on a drive in Lytle Creek behind my house for an hour to look at the scenery. So there's a number of things. Going on a walk. The guy talked about go work out. That's gold. Go on a walk. Get some exercise. Get some exercise. That has amazing benefits.
I agree with you, Pastor Caleb.
And what I would dissuade is medication. But if you want to go down that route, good luck.
Here's my question.
And you've been there.
And I've been there. I've done medication, and there are a lot of
Here's
side
my
effects.
question to you guys.
This is fascinating.
There's this. I don't want to put, and I agree. I don't want to put all of this weight on my wife. But what if? How is there a healthy balance where you can inform your wife without putting the weight on? Because there's that extremist side where I'm not going to tell my wife anything, and then the wife, you guys tell me I'm not married.
I'm trying to really honestly, as I'm listening to this and I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm really trying to evaluate like where I don't want to have this desire for my husband to come to me be a selfish desire, where it's actually, not benefiting him. I want to benefit my husband, but I listen to this and I think to myself, what can I do as a wife to give the greatest support system? But at the same time, not be completely left in the dark.
Because then what if you're blindsided because he didn't tell you anything? He doesn't want to put that.
I think I shared the dynamic that, that we have, that I really feel like Ashlee gets me.
No, I do. I get you completely, and I get like your circumstance and everything like that. But this would
But
be
I'm saying how you respond.
Oh, absolutely.
How you
I respond to you, but in the sense too, like if I hypothetical changing Caleb's shoes and him not wanting to put the weight on me, I'm not called to my kids. I'm called to shepherd my kids. I'm called to my husband. So for me, if it was you, I would feel called to you in the sense of, if that is what you need, that's what you need. But my kids are going somewhere for the time being for a week, and I'm going to focus on my husband. I'm going to make sure this is what he needs. I'm going to...
But oftentimes for the best thing that you can do for that man is to give him space.
Well, and
that's how men are. That's how men are created.
But, like, I get that, but I'm saying in the sense too, like if in my mind,
that's what I'm saying. You've done that before,
I know I have.
You have taken the kids out. You've stayed at your mom's overnight.
Right.
You have helped me when I know. Because there are natural, like right now, I'm stressed with a lot of stuff. You know what I'm stressed about. Phil knows what I'm stressed about. Everyone who's close to me knows what I'm. But it's not enough. That I need the space, that I need the time to process it, like Caleb's situation, he's saying. But the times I have told you, I'm in a rut or whatever, you have responded like in kind in a way that I love and I appreciate, which says, do you need to go away with your friends? Do you need to go on a golf trip? Do you need, and many times I have said, I want to hang out with you. I feel like I'm being depressed because I feel like we're just friends. I want to fall in love with you again. And you have perfect. Let me set up the grandmas to watch the kids.
And I think
that is the key.
That's vulnerability.
That's the key.
And
you said I told you.
But that's what I'm saying. I said that.
So
I feel
agree.
like I've said it.
My question is, like, to the wives, if men are really going through this and they're like, okay, I don't want to put the burden of weight on my wife, I'm not going to tell you anything. How would you feel as wives if they're not informing you, not to fix it, but informing you, hey, I'm in a rut, I'm not really doing too well, I'm going to go seek external sources to get better, because I agree with where you're going, but to leave the wife out of it completely to where it's leaving you guys guessing, is he okay?
You know what I think? And I think based off of the video and how Pastor Caleb interpreted the video, I think one of the key things that's missing that we haven't really talked about is whether or not the stress and the the breaking point of the anxiety, whatever, is coming from the marriage or outside the marriage.
Right.
Because I think that is, I think that's a huge aspect because number one,
if it's from the marriage, go to therapy together. Sit with the pastor.
Right.
I think that's a given.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of women, I think that's just, we want to make sure that our family unit is good. So if our husband is stressed out and won't talk to us about it, we instantly go into this place of like, am I doing something wrong? Do I need to do? And then now we're nagging.
Does he not say, it's not you?
Yeah,
my husband.
I know Nathan enough. He would say that. If you said, "What is it, me?" and he would say, "No, it had nothing to do with you."
Then I'm like, "Okay, bye. What do you need from me?"
But the average woman is not. No.
Exactly.
Because I would agree that all three of them are pretty similar in that way. That saying, you would vocalize, "Hey, I'm in a rut," and then do what you had to do. I would say, would you say that?
That's more just taking leadership in charge as far as what you're talking about. That's not really. To me, that's not pertinent to this conversation, because there's one thing to say, you know what, honey, like mentally I'm off. I'm dealing with stresses. I need to go with the boys on a retreat. I need to do this. I need to do that. Just so you're aware, just please, can you hold down the fort? Can you take care of the kids? Just don't worry. I'm going to handle myself. That's different than me going up to her saying, oh, honey, I feel like I'm going to kill myself today. This happened and this happened. My boss told me this and this happened. What do you think, honey? What do you think I should do? That's there's a difference. And that's what we're talking about. You shouldn't treat your wife like she's your therapist.
They're laughing at me for whatever reason.
That's my
and I understand that, and I think it's just for women. If we don't know enough about the situation, or at least where you like we've talked about, you guys know how to communicate and use your words.
That vulnerability, yes.
Whereas you're talking about a lot of women wouldn't react that way. It's because a lot of men don't know how to communicate with their wives.
But right at the beginning, I dissed the guys. I said, if you're a guy that's slamming doors, going to the bar,
100%.
you're just as emotional and
you may not see it that way. So that is where I agreed with you on everything, Chelsie. But that's where I agree with you hand and foot, is like, if you have fallen under prey of the lie of to tell your wife the stresses or the things you're going through, but at the same time, pout your lip, peel out the driveway when you leave the house. Because I know guys like it, right?
What?
Right. Oh, yeah.
They peel out the driveway,
punch
so
walls.
they hit walls.
gosh.
They go and play their PlayStation.
Oh,
you know,
no.
like to.
Well, nothing wrong with playing a PlayStation,
Oh no,
but it's when it's done.
But
in
I'm
like
saying they're doing it in the way of like I
a
can't be
coping
around you guys.
mechanism.
I you know,
Yeah.
not in a healthy, mature way of like,
childish?
you know, hey, I enjoy gaming with my guys. It's therapeutic for me, but in the sense of I'm going to ignore my family and act like I'm not in these problems, and I'm going to go on Grand Theft Auto. Like
Right.
you are emotional. You are processing, and your woman is going to lose respect for you
For sure.
because she sees from you that you quote unquote, babe, I don't know, I just can't open up. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my father. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. But she's looking at you and go, you look pretty open to me.
right.
You're drinking
Right.
that bottle of Jack pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Right.
You're hitting that wall pretty good to me. You're yelling at our kids pretty good to me. And to me, that's where you are losing the respect,
I
of
agree.
the person
Right.
that you're
I'm
with, the
with
white
you.
you're with. And to me, it just general that is
I'm
not
with
the
you.
Christian responsibility, nor is that the Christian ethic of a man and a husband. But that's where I said to what you said. Oh, the woman, this. What about the man? That to me, that is the issue with the man.
Yeah.
Is if you are going to process your emotions maturely to know when and what to share with your wife, you also have to be able to do that in the emotions of all the other things that are
And
that are going
and
on.
I think that's
you know?
true for women. Ashlee and I have had conversations where it's like, yeah, I was frustrated, but this is not the right time to talk to my husband about it. Like that's healthy
Oh, yeah.
for both sides
Oh,
though. And that's
absolutely.
all I'm saying. Like I think it's
Yeah, but and definitely, but more as a woman, like for Ashlee, she shares
gonna
her
share
thoughts with me
more.
every day.
yeah,
You know, and I love like that.
And you would rather have her talk to you than obviously.
But going to Kate, but I mean, she could. But I know she is talking to everyone else about many of these things. I know she's talking to Sanaz about it. I know she's talking to her sister about it. She's not sharing anything uniquely with me that she's going through.
yeah.
Like, oh, I'll save that for Adam.
Yes.
By the time it gets to me, because I'm at work all day, nine other people know about it.
telephone. You're the last guy on the list.
Yeah, but going to Caleb's point, there's a reason why my wife does that, because in some marriages that doesn't happen, but there's a reason why my wife does that, to Caleb's point, because when I come home, I'm a tree. I'm a root. Like I'm a shade that she could come and sit on and she can dump on. And because I'm a husband, because I'm the man, and because she sees in me like, oh, he's not going to lose it. He's a safe place. She'll come and just boom, 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 boom. But at the same time, not all marriages do that, nor can all men handle that.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to communicate. Well, I can handle that all day. There is nothing that my wife can't handle that tell me that I'm not going to sit there as a root and then cover her. I'll speak when I need to speak, or I won't when I need to won't, and I'll just say, yeah, wow, babe. You know, like,
Yeah.
and then I always ask the question: are you telling me this because you look for a solution, or you're just looking to get this off of your chest? I'm just trying to get it off my chest.
a
Great,
great
you know,
question to
like,
ask.
Yeah.
so that's something that we talk about all the time. But at the same time, if then she was like, okay, now your turn.
yeah.
Right.
I'd be like, are you gonna be a shade?
And that's
are you gonna root yourself?
that's
You're
important
not
for
built
men,
that
though.
way.
That's
You're
important
not
for
built
men
that
to
way.
realize, though, is that most of the time women just want a listening ear. They don't want the answer. And a lot of men get themselves in trouble when they try to give an answer, and then they get frustrated for their wife not listening to the advice that they gave.
problem.
But
I think vice
most of the time,
versa.
it's just a listening ear. That most of the time, not all the time.
I was in a
most
Bible
of the time.
study, and there's this guy who joined on, and he was frustrated. He's like, my girl keeps coming to me with all these problems, but she's not listening to my solutions that I'm giving her. I have the answers to fix it, and it was him and all girls. He was the only guy. We're like, dude, she doesn't want you to fix it. She just wants you to listen, and that's all she needs. He's like, but I'm a fixer. I'm built like that. I understand that, but I think
He's got to mature.
Yes, I think that's
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
You said something really healthy. What do you need from me in this conversation? Do you need an answer, or do you just need a listening ear? I think that's healthy communication.
Yeah.
Not all men have that though. You're an anomaly. So
I wouldn't
help
say I'm
the
necessary.
men.
I mean, I think Jermaine does that great. I think Phil does that great. I think Sanaz can speak on. I think Nathan does that great. I think that's who Caleb is. I mean, maybe because we're Christian men, I don't know, but but I do I do know a lot of men that aren't doing. But again, it's also you have to be taught that a lot of this stuff, which is
I was gonna say that's your circle.
Always it's full circle. It always goes back to me and Caleb saying why it's important to be in church, why it's important to go to church, why it's important to have godly men in your life if you're a man. It's always going to come full circle to that because you certain stuff you have to learn,
Right.
Or if you're not critical enough, because you could either be taught it by a man in a good way, or you could be shown it in the worst way possible and say, well, I'm not going to do that. I saw how my father was. And that's big in the Hispanic community. Like I saw how my father was. He came home, he had his chair he would sit in, he would crack open his same beer, he would have 7 of them before bed, he wouldn't speak to the kids, the wife would bring him the dinner, and because he had stresses, it was work, it was everything, but in his head, it was, that is my life. And then on Saturdays, I wake up all the kids, they do chores, they do blah, blah, blah. So if you were raised with that, then you might have enough critical thinking ability to say, I know how that negatively impacted me. So when I become a father, I'm not going to be that. So it can either be taught or it can either be caught in the worst way possible. But by and large, I would say is it needs to be taught. And I've seen it in both. I caught these things both from what I didn't want to do or didn't want to see, and also what I learned from godly men, including my dad, of showing me certain aspects that's like, hey, this is what a man does. This is what a man needs to do, and it has been great for my life, but it definitely hasn't been, escape of any hardship or any difficulties that me and Ashlee have had to walk through. But I really feel like at this point in our life, I know the level of vulnerability I need to have, but I also know the level of I just heard it recently told this way of like men are like a furnace, and if they leave their furnace door open too much, the heat and the fire will go out. And so sometimes you need to just close it and treasure some things. Like don't let everything out so fast. Like some things you got to let sit in, because if you always are walking around with this door open, then all of the heat escapes, all of the air escapes, and then you do find yourself dry. And so I do think for some and again, I just want to go back. I don't want to discount anyone who struggles with suicide or has suicide. Those are real things. Those are real implications. Those are clinical mental issues. But I'm talking about the fluffy side of depression, the fluffy side of suicide. There's so many kids today that say they're suicidal because in school there's so many suicide prevention classes that they're told if you don't get your way, or if you're struggling with anything in life, that equals suicidal thoughts. Like I've seen these suicide prevention things.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's exact. It says you may be suicidal or struggling with depression if you feel like you don't fit in. Like come on.
Right.
Those are
every kid in the 6th grade doesn't feel like they fit in. If you feel like you have ever thought about ending your life. I mean, everyone, if you grew up around video games or whatever, and when you watch it on TV and the news, you do think about death often. My son uses the word kill because he sees it in video games, and he thinks it means he thinks it's a term of engagement. He doesn't know that kill literally means like to end someone's life, because when my almost 5-year-old sees video games, when it says someone died, that person gets back up and has another life. So he thinks it's the terminology of play, and then we have to teach him, son, to say die that's not a good word in the real world, right? But a lot of times we're not giving those equations and we're not giving those differentials. And so when you say enough times that something equals something, when it's a very common occurrence, so for men are always going to feel the weight, and I think it goes kind of what Caleb said, like men are always going to feel the weight of providing and working and all these things like that. So to be told, hey, if that's hard for you, it means you have depression, or it means that's suicidal. I personally don't know of a single husband or father that does not feel the weight of providing for their family.
Yeah.
So if I told every guy who talked to me, man, Adam, dude, I just feel like I'm failing my wife. And I have these all the time. I'm a pastor. I feel like I'm failing my wife. I feel like I'm not present for my kids. I feel like, man, dude, we can't catch up on these bills, and we have 6 credit cards. We have $30,000 in debt. We have it. And I looked at him. I'm like, dude, sounds like you're depressed, bro. He'd be like, oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, so what do I do about it? You know, well, if you read the Bible, it's to not be in debt. It's to work hard.
Steward
it's to provide for your family.
Yeah.
It's to raise your quiver of your arrows in your family. And so you want to talk about, for a man, you really want to talk about a biblical perspective. Let's talk about the purpose you have in life. Let's talk about the way you're viewing success. Why are you in this debt? Because I see you rolling around in that Lincoln Navigator trying to keep up with the Joneses. Bro, go sell that car and have a car that's worth $4,000 until that's what a man needs to hear. A man needs a father figure, a grandfather figure that goes, get your head out of your butt. Stop trying to keep up with the person on the left and right. What they don't need to hear is either, dude, just tell me about it, or hey, just hit this blunt, or let's just go out and drink. That's escapism. That's the dangers of what a lot of men, to Chelsea's point, that's what they are falling into, is the escapism nature. And that is kind of the lie that this guy was telling in terms of just go to the gym. Caleb's right. If you go to any clinical psychologist, working out, getting a new hobby, all that stuff is really important. But if I act the devil advocate to what this guy was saying, he was saying, like, go get in the gym and go escape from whatever your depression is. That is not what you need to do. You know? So this has been just riveting.
Wow.
Well, he's coming probably from a secular, so that's a great natural antidote is working out, exercise. I think that's a great natural antidote. And then we've addressed some spiritual issues as well that we uniquely bring as pastors, as Christians, that ultimately is what's ultimately going to bring eternal satisfaction and inner peace that ultimately will be the greatest antidote to whatever depression you're experiencing.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I think it's really good because obviously looking at that video, I don't know a single woman who would look at that video and not disagree with this man.
Yeah.
Because
the way
you
he said
guys
it
are
was super disagreeable.
You guys are bringing very practical reasonings as to why men are the way that they are. Whereas women, you know, we look at that and we just see a guy with toxic masculinity and we just, you know, dismiss him.
And to your point and Chelsea's point is young men are looking at that. I think the average grown man is looking at that who has lived life and understands what he's saying. But a 13-year-old, they probably are looking at that.
Well, I learned a lot as just a wife of sort of how to, you know, be more supportive without demanding all the information.
You're welcome, Nathan.
I'm just nosy.
Today is Christmas Day. I expect you to buy me a good Christmas present.
No. We're just nosy and want to know and then keep it moving.
Yeah. Once I know, I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, I think
that's what they don't want, is they don't want to be like, oh, okay, now I know, whatever.
And then he's like crying.
I think in general, men who are raised with fathers in the home tend to lean on more stoicism, like me and Adam, where it's just like we're just stoic.
Yeah.
Where men who grew up with just their mothers in the home, they tend to be more emotional. So that's something to keep in mind too. Yeah. I think that's something that men who grew up in fatherless homes, that's something that
which is 40% of all children nowadays.
Yeah, that's something that they need to be taught, and hopefully they can get some good mentors. There's great people speaking to this issue on YouTube, Jordan Peterson and so on, father figures, but more importantly, some like real in-person, real life father figures in your life, mentors. And, you know, that's something I think that they need to be mindful of, that, you know, don't be overly emotional. Don't be overly, because that's the problem of our generation.
Yeah.
The boomers, theirs was they were too too stoic and just just. But our generation, the problem is being too emotional, being overly emotional.
Yeah.
And coming back to what I was saying, I would just err on the side of spilling your problems out on other men in your life and crying to them and seeking counsel from them, so that you're best a representative of that rock and that leader in your home. That's going to be the listening ear towards your wife's emotions, because that's how God made your wife, and that's how God made women, is to be overly emotional and wanting to pour out their concerns on their husbands. That's natural. And the man needs to be that strong bedrock leader force that listens to that more than anything, listens, and doesn't necessarily have try to figure it out or fix it, but listens, and then take his problems to other friends and
just to add one point real quick, and being wise about what other men you're going to be taking this information to, because if you're going to take it to somebody who A, doesn't have their finances in order, B, their marriage or date life or whatever, single or not, is
or they're not
a
Christian,
or not a believer, then that's not who you want to take to. Obviously we know that, but I just want to,
which goes to what I said, like if you speak to another man, then the resolve is, well, we just got to go hit the bar. Right. Let's go get you a drink, or hey, let's just go toke up. I got some weed in my glove. Let's go escape. Then
or alcohol or whatever. It is.
Yeah, right. Like then that's again, that plays into the childlikeness
and
that's why you had a lot of you have a lot of the silent generation and the boomer generation in terms of the alcoholism and other stuff. It was a form of escape. It was a form of getting out of the pain, getting out of the way. So we're definitely not saying don't be aware of your emotions, don't be aware of how to express them, don't be aware of who to share them with. It's the understand the balance that what vulnerability means in a marriage. It does not mean sharing all of your problems. That's not what vulnerable means. It doesn't mean dumping, all the weight and pain in things like that, and understanding the differences between a man and a woman. Do you still disagree with Caleb's take, Sanaz? I feel like you do.
Cookie in my mouth.
Oh, well, you still disagree with Caleb's take on what he said? This is rich.
No, I don't disagree with his take. I just, as a woman, I don't ever want men to feel like they can't open up to their wives if they really need to. That's all. I don't ever want there to be a situation like where you really need your wife and you're so stuck on
your pride.
On your pride that you don't feel like you can. And as a wife, I don't ever want my husband to feel like he can't talk to me. That's all.
Yeah, because I think when we were dating, the vulnerability that we both had between the two of us is what attracted me to you, because you were honest and open. We were honest and open about our past, honest and open about our future, honest and open about what we wanted to do. And then when we got married, not to say that things transitioned, but things changed obviously a little bit to where you had more weight on your shoulders, obviously stepping up more in the church. So things and dynamics did change. I didn't take that to heart for it, but there are some things too where I think when it comes to the single and the dating world, what would you say to a woman with a man like you that like you were vulnerable with me, but how does someone go about a dating world? And if someone is not emotional,
part of my philosophy with you and has always been is there are no secrets I keep from you, but I also don't tell you everything. Mm-hmm. You're welcome to ask me anything, and I'll never lie to you. Yeah. But I also won't always come and offer the information up.
It's like an as needed to know.
And she's welcome to know whatever she wants to know. So when it was, how many girlfriends have you had? How many, what was the hardest breakup you ever went through? Or because I meet guys like, Ashlee knows everything about my past. I meet guys like, dude, I can never tell. My wife will ask and I'll be like, no, you're the only woman I've ever been with. And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you're lying. You're keeping secrets from her. And at some point that's going to bubble up, bro. Like you could only lie for so long. Right. And so in that same way, like, There's no, I'm an open book. Ask me whatever you want. But at the same coin, I'm not going to come and offer all of those things up, nor as many as men. I'm not fully interested in all of your things. Right. So you're going to have to offer up what you want in the same time, because I'm not. At the same time, I wasn't asking you, I'm not going to ask you about, even though I know everything about your past, but I wasn't always the one digging into it. You were the one offering, this is what, me and my ex-boyfriend, we had a fight like this, and it never bothered me because I know my value.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you would offer that stuff up freely in our conversation. I never would offer up stories of my ex-girlfriends. If you asked me, then I would share them. Yeah. So I think that's part of the difference of the dynamic of how I've always been is I could come home from work. You can ask me whatever you want, and I will tell you what it is. But I am not going to come home from work and let me tell you about my day in the sense that I feel like I need to get it off. No, I'm wrestling with it. Right. So that's...
But the difference is you would offer up if you knew something specifically mattered to Ashlee.
Or if she asked me, so a lot of men keep secrets to protect the emotions of the woman. And so even to the faulty where they will lie to their wife or to their girlfriend that ultimately bite them in the butt at times. And so part of me where I would say vulnerability is sharing truth and speaking truth, but also like not being this open bag, like I said about the furnace, like not just being this furnace that was like, her seeing me chuckle and like, oh, what are you chuckling about? Oh, well, where we just went on that date, I once went with one of my girlfriends, and then we like whatever, and then she's gonna be like, what the heck? But she has no problem telling me her boyfriend stories, but I'm like Caleb said, I'm a rock. I'm I'm stable. You're secure. I have to be mature. I have to be secure. And if I'm not, that's when then I have tantrums. That's when men go and like they lose it because they're not at peace with themselves. They do not value themselves. They do not know their purpose in life. They do not know their value in life. And I've always said that when I would speak to like groups of singles and stuff like that. Yeah. I was Ashlee's first boyfriend that made less than $1 million a year and was not a professional athlete. I was her first boyfriend, and I was her first boyfriend under 6 feet in her life. And so I would honestly get asked by guys. She had ex-boyfriends that right now have multiple gold medals, that have been part of NBA All-Star teams, that have been part of football franchises and have Super Bowl rings. And I would, when we were first dating and people kind of knew of her story and my story, now we're a couple. People just know us together. But in the past, if you knew Adam individually and you knew Ashlee individually, a lot of guys would often ask me, does that make you insecure that she has been with so many guys that were successful? Yeah. Does that make you insecure? And I'm like, well, what makes you think that I'm not successful? Yeah. And what makes you think that I won't be successful one day? You're equaling success in the way of fame and medals and money, but I have never equaled, because I've seen those guys. I've seen how depressed those guys are. I've seen how often they get caught cheating. I've seen how their life are in ruins. Why would I want to look up to a guy who has sexual assault cases against them? Yeah. Why, not speaking of her boyfriends, but just in general, if you're talking about the average athlete and stuff like that. Yeah. Why would I look up to a guy who has sexual assault cases, who has multiple baby mamas, who has multiple divorces, because he got a few million in the bank that 7 women are getting a piece of?
Yeah, that part.
I'm supposed to be impressed by that? No, what I'm impressed in myself is that I've committed to be a one man woman, or however I'm saying it, one woman man, that I will be a father that loves my children and has legacy in my children.
Amen.
That I'm going to be a guy who loves God, who goes to church, who prays for his family, who reads the Bible, who listens to his pastor, who has community, because at the end of the day, when me and my wife are 80 years old, hand in hand,
that's right.
Nobody's gonna care. Everybody's gonna fight over what's in the bank, what's in the thing. Yeah. Like, what I'm gonna care about is the people that I have left an impact on in my life. What I'm gonna care about when I'm dead is that her and I made it as a couple, that her and I fought as best as we could to make it work. And her and I have did everything we can to make sure we left an impact around to me, that is success. And that is what I've known ever since I was a 22-year-old kid and I met her. That is the life that I had for myself. So when someone would ask me, "Oh, does that intimidate you?" These guys, I'm like, "No, I know the life that I have planned for my life."
Yeah.
And I know that I could be as broke as possible, barring that I'm doing everything I can to work hard, not lazy or anything. But I could be as broke as possible, and all of those things that I just said are free 99.
Yep.
You can get a hold of a Bible and you can read it. Going to church is free, regardless of what the American popular belief says about churches and money. To go to church is free. To read your Bible is free. To be a man of God is free.
To pray.
To love your wife is free. To pray is free. To be involved in your community is free. To love your children is free. To go to your kids' games is free. To pray with your family is free. So I could have $10 in the bank and I'm still richer than any guy. And that's what I viewed at 22 years old. I am rich. And so I'm willing to be the people's padre any day of the week.
Ashley's ready to.
I want to ask Ashlee about that, because that is big right now in amongst young women.
This might be a
They have
podcast.
these crazy standards, right? They has to be at least 6 feet. He has to have at least this much money. He has to have this. Speak to those young women that have these incredibly high standards. As with Kevin Samuels, you're a 3 and you're wanting a 10.
And you had guys like that had dumb money.
I
Right,
think
private
it
jets
came
and everything.
down to where I really had to see what, like how Adam said, what was my life going to look like? There was a point in time where I was with my ex and I swear my mom's a praying woman, walked through the front door. I went to her and I was like, I'm never going back. And that's when I was living with the guy. And I was like, I'm not going back. She's like, what do you mean?
You lived with a guy outside of marriage?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Can't get over that.
And so I thought that was going to be my life. I thought I was going to be with him for the rest of my life, that I was going to get married. That was the lifestyle that I was going to live. But there was things that happened in that relationship that I couldn't get over with. I couldn't get over. There was things that happened in that relationship that I felt that this is going to be the rest of my life, and I know I'm going to be unhappy. Walked through the front door with my mom, and I was like, I'm never going back. And she's like, are you serious? 4 years on and off. I was like, yeah, I'm never going back. Moved away, came back, and I really had an encounter with God and got my walk back really strong to where I was literally like, I'm done. I don't need to be with anybody. I was with people. I had sex before marriage. I was like, I feel like God has called me to just focus on him. Like you said, have that Christ-centered relationship, him be my peace, him be my joy, him be my comfort, and not look for man, not look to my parents, but look between me and heaven to say, like, this is the relationship that I need to have, because I'm not happy with myself of what I allowed myself to go through. No one else told me to sleep with nobody. No one else told me to sleep with that guy. No one else told me to party late. No one else told me to club. No one else told me to have those lower standards but myself. So I had to get to a point.
But also culture and your peers were impressed. By you being with those men. And so that did encourage you
of course.
Yes,
to seek that. That's why you had so many professional athlete relationships. Because the praise of people.
Yes. Oh, you should give that guy a chance. Oh, he's hitting you up in the DMs. Yeah, just showing people, oh, text him. Why not? And so I allowed the pressure as well. And I said, I'm done with it. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm focusing on my job, going to work. And I moved back home and had zero intent, right? Had zero intention.
My friend.
We're all chewing, sorry. Had zero intentions of being with anybody, like nobody whatsoever. And even when I met Adam.
Move your mic. I can hear your cookie chew.
Even when I met Adam, it was something where I didn't know what I was looking for at that time still. And I didn't know if it was a friendship. But there was something about him that I would say that captivated me with him, to say, like, there's something different that I've never experienced, just the interaction. He's looking me in the eyes. He's valuing me. He's going out of his way. He's texting me, hey, would you like to come to this church event? I would love to have you a part of this. There were things that he did that, things that he did that I've never experienced before in a relationship or in a man. Like, I saw the man in the father that my father was towards my mom, which I admired, always made her the one. But it was something in him to say, my standards never lowered, my standards changed. it wasn't that he had to be 6 foot. Because people would be like, well, he's not taller than Ant, but he's a bigger man than you.
And we were dating. There were people who tell her amongst people that were close in her family and other stuff like that. Like he's not even fit. He doesn't have a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Like I remember Ashlee telling me that. Like, oh, I have people in my life who are saying like, you're not even fit. You don't even have a 6-pack. Like, think about your children. Think about blah 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 blah. And I was like,
yeah. And there's and and it took. It was a point where there was something where it was almost. I guess I can say it. My mom came to me because my mom was very like, marry someone that was an athlete, marry someone that was tall, marry someone that was going to take care of you, marry someone that financially stable, someone that was going to be a loving husband, a loving father. So she had all these lists, but there were certain lists or things in the list, obviously being tall, being handsome, being athletic, all that stuff.
I'm handsome.
You're very handsome. You're very handsome. But I'm saying like the list, that was in the list. I'm reading the list. You didn't get me there. Yeah.
She didn't say she didn't get nothing on the list.
Right. I just did. That was just a list.
Beauty and the Beast.
These are right.
Oh my God.
Esmeralda and Quasimodo.
Stop it. You're so stupid. Oh, watch it. The gypsy. Thank you. Calling me a gypsy. Thank you. But
Proceed.
she came back to me. Maybe this is what I tell you, like 4 years ago. And
Yeah,
she
probably like 4
said
years.
she was looking through her old journal and she would write her prayers out for all of us. And she read it to me, and then she started to cry and said, this was everything I prayed for. Adam was everything I prayed for. Although from the front end, from what people may have said or seen to say that he wasn't the athlete or the fame and the fortune, he is what I prayed for. And so I think sometimes us as women have to get out of the stigma of fame and fortune, or an athlete is something that is desired, when, like how Caleb said, God has knit us in such a way to be part of a spouse, to be a mother, to have children. And what does that look like for your life? Like, I'm more than happy with Adam. We are more than successful together. We complement each other well. Like you would say that odds attract, opposites attract. But it took me and God, that relationship with me and God. So I know when a lot of women are like, well, when did that right guy? Nothing. I wasn't looking for anything, wasn't looking for no one, wasn't searching. It was just a relationship where I had to take healing too. There was healing that had to take place with me before God was like, here, I have someone for you.
You weren't searching, but you also were open for the definition that society and even friends and family had placed on what a man ought to be.
Yes.
You were willing. You were willing to look past that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important too.
Absolutely.
And endure the criticism.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We got
And you fought through that.
Yeah, we got engaged. Caleb, I don't know if we ever told you so. We got engaged the day I sat with him in the front. We got engaged. So a woman came up to us. I was like, I just thought you guys were best friends. Then she looked at Adam and she goes, are you okay with her being taller than you?
Like the week after we got engaged.
The week after we got engaged.
Yeah.
He was like,
I didn't know.
You know what? No. Cancel it all. Here's the ring.
Done.
Yeah, I said, I didn't even notice. Man,
Yeah,
maybe we should
come
talk
on.
about that.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like
think people get in, like you said, it's the society that makes it seem. But I always laugh because I always like, and Adam and I are nowhere near. But what is Kevin Hart and his wife's name? Like they're a total like, yeah. And I'm sure because he has a great personality, they have other things that are in common. And you look past the things that God has not intended you to look at because God has designed you for one specific person. And I
Well,
believe
you
that
know,
was Adam.
Joe Rogan, the ultimate alpha male of our day,
Yes.
he's like 5'5".
yeah,
or 5'6".
Really?
Yeah, he's like
Really?
5'5".
probably less than that. Yeah,
Probably like 5'5".
Yeah, I would never know.
Yeah, he says he's 5'8", but he's not. He's
But
5'5".
yeah.
And the movies make it look good, but Dwayne the Rock Johnson is 5'1". Yeah.
No, he's not.
You know who else is short? Liver King. Liver King is real short. He's like,
Well,
wow.
and that's I think that for me, I had to change, not change my.
But also for me, it's a good point Caleb was making is like I never I never showed her, like I never made her think I was insecure. So I never asked her. I never asked her, does it bother you that I'm not as tall as your ex-boyfriends?
Yeah,
does
that's
it
a great
bother
point.
you that I'm
no.
not as rich as your
Yeah,
ex-boyfriends?
no, never.
Do you ever think about the fact that I'm blah 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 blah?
Right.
Never.
That's
Never. Never. It has never even crossed my mind.
Well, look at this conversation went full circle right there.
But to me,
There
that's
it
what I'm
is.
talking about. That because in all intents and purposes, that's vulnerable. That's being vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm going, but the girl I'm dating and I'm asking, does it bother? Like I'm so vulnerable. That's so sexy. And Ashlee would not walk away as good as that as in theory. She would not say, "Oh, it's so cute that he was vulnerable and asked me it showed me his insecurities." No,
Well, and that's I think
that would not
Chelsie
be an
and I were
impressive
talking
thing.
about that as well because us as women can do it, but it still isn't attractive. Because I was talking to Chelsie, and after we got married, I blew up. Boy, I blew up. Shamu status.
Oh, gained weight?
Gained weight. Gained like 15 pounds. And
it's not your beauty, it's your booty.
I blew up. Boy, I grew
He
up.
loved that booty.
And so, but there were times where I would wear I would wear a kimono like the whole time, cover my body, tell him how shawl, be so insecure, would tell him that. And he's like, I don't know how to respond to that because I find you attractive, but
It
it
was
doesn't.
so unattractive.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that's what I would tell you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Not-
so
not
attracted
the-
to you.
yeah.
But when you come and you go, oh, I look so
Yes.
fat and I
Yes.
need to cover my, I'd be like,
That's
or
not-
even with, you know,
yes.
being married, we would make love. You'd be like, oh no, turn off the lights, da 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 da. And I'd be like, you're attractive to me. What are
Yeah.
you doing?
Well, it's the same
What
thing
are
with
you know,
women
like-
in makeup. Like
Yeah.
for most men, don't care about makeup.
Yeah.
I
Not
prefer,
if you're Nathan
I prefer
Mesa.
non-makeup.
That's all right.
But makeup is for women to look good around other women.
But Nathan
That's what makeup
subscribes
is
to
for.
societal beauty standards.
No, I think
In terms of weight, everything.
Yeah.
So that's a different.
But
That's
that's fine.
Nathan's different.
Back to that point though, is it didn't make you any more. It didn't make you confident in me as well. You were really bothered when I would make those statements or those
Oh, yeah,
comments,
it bothered
and you
Yeah.
didn't know how to respond as a man because you're like, that's not an area that maybe
Yes.
I'm.
So that's.
But
it
I did
goes
tell you
both
one day it
ways.
was very. I told you one day I
Yes.
said it's very unattractive
Yes.
when you keep criticizing your body because I love your body and I love you and I said I need you to stop wearing those shawls because you're covering an insecurity that I don't see in you. So either you're living for other people's
Right.
approval, you're
Yes.
living for other people's sign of beauty, or listen to your husband.
Right.
And I would be honest enough,
Yeah.
and that's the difference in marriages. I'd be honest enough to say, well, let's work out together.
Yes.
If I thought that it was affecting me in some type of way, but it never had. And
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
where it started becoming unattractive because I'm like, stop pointing out the stuff
Right.
that's bad with you because now you're making me look at it. And,
Exactly.
And I don't want to fixate on that because I find you beautiful.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And she, but that is naturally part of a woman is being very hard on herself, on her figure and her body. But that's where my job as a husband was to encourage her, in what she wanted, you know? And that's why I tell her, if you're not happy with your body, then I will help you do whatever you want. But to me, and I wasn't lying, to me, I'm very attracted to. I don't want to play that game, you know?
Right.
Yeah. How did we get there?
Good.
That was sweet.
This is
Let's
so
end
good.
there.
This is great. Yeah. I mean, I don't want
The gummy?
to. We'll decide whether this has been a
would be a
two-part, one
two-parter.
part. I mean, it'd just be a really long one part. People can decide if they want to listen to the whole thing or
They
not.
could do it in sections.
But we will have prerequisites.
Business.
Go see therapists, go to biblical counselors, value if you really are going through something mentally or clinically. Don't want to disenfranchise that at all or anything like that.
Right.
And also, if Caleb offended you at all in this podcast today, I apologize on
Take
his
it up with
behalf.
Steven.
Take it
It's
up
all
with
Steven's
Steven.
Yeah,
Steven
You are
started
the
it.
company you keep. Sorry.
That's part of doing long form. You open yourself up to also. But this was truly riveting. For me.
Riveting.
We really saw the
Riveting.
differences between men and women, and how they think. And
I thought it was-
obviously,
I thought it was great.
we could have the conversation as family, and also our extended family
Yeah.
over here with Nancy and Chelsie and everything like that. I have one last question as we close. Truly, because Nancy and Chelsie, and even Gabe, you're engaged. Is there anything you took away from today? You may want to mulch on it more, but is there anything you walked away as like single people or even Gabe, an engaged person, that you're like, wow, I'm really going to look at this differently?
Oh,
if you didn't, if you don't, then we're just gonna delete the episode.
Sure. No, for sure. And I've had these conversations with a guy that I was seeing, but and you guys just kind of like amplified it a little bit more with not having to, because I'm like you, Sanaz, where I want to know, like, tell me what's on your mind. Like, I want to know that. It just fills my heart. But I think it was so important to hear from you, Pastor Adam, Pastor Caleb, like, I don't have to tell you everything, but I can still be vulnerable with you. And I guess I didn't realize those can coincide with each other. They can, walk hand in hand and still be considered healthy. So I think, and like I said, I was living it before a little bit. So it was really interesting to hear that, and to hear that we can be different, obviously, in the form of communication and vulnerability, and still have it be healthy. So that was really interesting. I still want to know what's on your mind, though. But.
and that's never going to change for a woman. That's the thing. It's understand, but it will never change. Like, you can't change who you are. Like, you can just understand the other person better. Is what it is. But,
so that was great. The examples you guys gave. So that was good.
Chelsea, anyone else?
Yeah. No. I mean. I'm looking. I can see the whole scope right here, but no, I just think it was interesting because I'm
back
not
up more so we can see you.
Oh, you want to see?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chelsea.
You're good.
I'm just gonna run over your foot. No, I just thought it was interesting because I'm engaged, and so I'm not in a marriage relationship where we're having these kinds of interactions often or even at all. But it's just interesting just hearing the dynamics trying to be fleshed out in reality, because we're talking about it in theory, but we're also trying to get to like what the reality is. And so even like, I'll have conversations with my fiance, and she'll tell me about her entire day, and I'll never tell her about what happened in my day, like, at all. And that's just the way it's working. Or even the dynamics of trying to understand what that guy was talking about in the video, because the ladies took it one way, but even me, I'm like, no, I don't think he was saying depression didn't exist or whatever, because then he seemed to even like qualify it further. But no, just it was riveting conversation with the
riveting,
just riveting.
I would say what I took away from it, it's two-part. Number one, as a single person, I do eventually, when I get in a relationship, want to be a soft and a safe place to land for my husband. But in order to be that and to do that, I have to gain understanding of what he needs. And so I'm recognizing you guys do a really good job of knowing what each other needs in moments of vulnerability, and knowing what vulnerability means within your relationship, because I think it shifts per couple. And so it helped me understand. The more I understand what my husband needs, when he needs it, then vulnerability will be a safe thing for both he and I.
That's good.
I think this podcast is one of those ones that people have to sort of keep in their back pocket, because I think every couple goes through a situation where they have just different perspectives on what they think a healthy conversation looks like, whereas it's different for both sides. And so I think in those moments, this would be a great thing to just sort of pop in and listen to just get the other perspective, because
and talking, like, that's what I've heard. What I love most about what we're doing this podcast, like, and Caleb just got the feedback too, and I hear it all the time, is like, married couples love to watch this podcast, and then it allows an open, because sometimes it is just hard to come to quick draw with your spouse and bring stuff up to talk about, and so this podcast has been a really good platform for couples to hit pause and expound and even say, do you agree with them? Just because there may be men hearing me and Caleb will go, no, I disagree. It works for me that I tell my wife and that's where I would say, good for you. Like there are special outliers and special caveats that, like, if anyone's listening and saying, well, we're different, great. If it works for you and it works for your spouse or works for the person you're dating, great. I'm happy for you. Don't ever do anything the way we suggest. If you have something working for you,
don't reinvent the wheel.
Definitely. Right. But at the same time, like Sanaz is saying, is like, if you're in a rut or having a tough time communicating, like, plug this in, watch it on the TV or listen to it on a car ride and dialogue and be like, what did you hear when they said that? What did you hear that? And it, like, right now, I know there are men probably looking at their wife going like, man, I'm so glad they said it because I've been trying to, you know, like,
Sure.
you know,
Make her
like,
understand.
Sure.
Yeah.
right? Or vice
Yeah.
versa, like also women going like, man, yeah, speak that, blah, 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 and just letting, you know, letting someone else say it for you to also say it. And sometimes it comes with us just throwing it all out there. So sometimes stuff doesn't even stick. Like, you know, you just throw it out there and see what sticks with people.
Oh, yeah,
type of
for
thing.
sure.
You know. All right. Blessings, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas week
Merry
episode.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
God bless you all. Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad, yes.
Happy Hanukkah.